Divorce me while I am sick? That's fine. Enjoy being single. My family had this friend named Heidi. She was this sweet German lady who was married to the biggest jerk I've ever met. We'll call him David because that's close enough to what we actually called him behind his back. David worked with my dad in IT, and he had this weird thing where he would mess stuff up on purpose just so he could be the hero who fixed it. Like he'd delete important files or crash servers and then stay late solving the problem he created. My dad said everyone at work hated him, but couldn't prove he was doing it on purpose. The creepiest part was how he acted around my younger sister. She was 16 at the time. David would call her randomly asking if she needed a ride anywhere. He'd show up at our house when he knew my parents weren't home and try to talk to her. My dad finally told him if he contacted her again, he'd report him to the police. Meanwhile, his wife Heidi was literally the nicest person you'd ever meet. She was always baking stuff for our family and volunteering at the animal shelter. She had this infectious laugh that made everyone around her smile. None of us could figure out what she was doing with this guy. Then Heidi got really sick, like scary sick. Her colon just stopped working one day and she almost died. The doctors had to do emergency surgery and found out she had Crohn's disease. They saved her life, but she had to get a colostomy bag. She was still in the hospital recovering from the surgery when David came to visit. Heidi told us later what happened. She was lying there with tubes and monitors everywhere, barely able to sit up. And David looks at her and says he wants a divorce, just like that. She asked him why, and he said, "I didn't marry a sick woman." Those were his actual words. "I didn't marry a sick woman." Like she chose to get Crohn's disease. Like she wanted to almost die. He moved out that same week. 2 weeks later, we saw him at the grocery store with some woman hanging all over him. My mom confronted him in the parking lot and told him he was disgusting. He just shrugged and said Heidi wasn't his problem anymore. The whole community turned on him after that. Nobody wanted anything to do with him. My dad's company started investigating all those IT disasters, and surprise, they could finally trace them back to David. He got fired. Turns out David had also racked up a ton of debt. Credit cards, personal loans, he owed money everywhere. So he just packed up and left. Flew back to Israel and ghosted everyone he owed money to. Good riddance, we all thought. At least Heidi could move on with her life. And she did. She started taking photography classes and got really good at it. She went back to university and got her degree. She was finally happy without David dragging her down. About a year later, Heidi came over for dinner and she was grinning like crazy. She told us David had been calling her. At first, we were all worried he was harassing her, but then she explained what was happening. In Israel, your marital status is printed right on your ID card. It's one of the first things women ask to see when you go on a date there. David's card still said married because they never finalized the divorce. Every woman he tried to date would see that married status and immediately end the date. No second chances. They all assumed he was cheating on his wife. David was calling Heidi, begging her to fly to Israel so they could do the divorce paperwork. But here's the beautiful part. Heidi would answer his calls all sweet and innocent. She'd say, "Oh, David, I would love to help you out, but I'm just not healthy enough to fly right now. Maybe when I'm feeling better. You understand, right? My condition and all." She knew exactly what she was doing. David couldn't come back here because his creditors were still looking for him, and she wasn't about to fly to Israel to help the man who abandoned her in a hospital bed. So David was stuck, still legally married on paper, getting rejected by every woman in Israel, while Heidi was living her best life hanging out with us and pursuing her photography career. She'd tell us about his calls and we'd all laugh. He'd be getting more and more desperate each time, practically begging her to come help him. And she'd just smile and say, "Not yet, maybe next month." This went on for like 2 years. Every few months he'd call. Every time she'd give him the same answer. She told us it was the best revenge she could have asked for. He left her when she needed him most, and now he was paying for it. Heidi eventually moved back to Germany. She still visits us every year and she's doing amazing. She has her own photography business and she travels all over Europe for work. She's healthy and happy and surrounded by people who actually care about her. As for David, no idea. He stopped calling eventually. But I like to imagine he's still stuck with that married status on his ID card, still explaining to confused dates why his wife is in another country, still being the same jerk he always was. Heidi won, and that's exactly what she deserved.